Hi, friends. It's Kayla Moran, and welcome back to the Let's Get Candid podcast. How's everybody doing today? Happy Thursday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever day or time it is that you're listening. So happy to be back on the mic with you guys. I'm so sorry for my hiatus for the last 2 weeks. Things have been absolutely insane over here. If you guys don't know me or don't know where I live, I'm based in Miami, Florida. So with the hurricanes and storm prep and trip prep, it just got kind of lost in the shuffle, and I'm so sad because I was really excited to share this episode, and I am honestly still in chaos mode with client work right now, but I was like, we're going to do it. This episode is going live because I genuinely am so passionate about this conversation, and I want you guys all to meet Brianne. And I could go on and on and on about what is going on right now, but if you follow my newsletter or my TikTok, you already know that things have been absolutely insane with client work and negotiations, and been out of office and traveling. And I reflected a lot on that in my journal this morning and my newsletter last night that went live this morning about how important it is to set boundaries and be intentional. Because if you are not putting yourself first, if you are not in top form, you're not going to be able to perform for your clients. And I'm so glad that past me begged my parents to let me go on this trip to Napa with them over the weekend, because I did not even know how much I needed an out of office until I was actually there. And it was so nice to just log off social media. I haven't posted anything today on my Instagram, and not really be on threads either, and just really be present. I did have to step out of a tasting on Friday, and I did have to work a little bit while we were in San Francisco on Monday. But Saturday and Sunday, I truly was able to just turn my mind off from work and be present with my family and drinking incredible wines. And the scenery was beautiful. The weather was amazing. It was honestly such a needed trip, and I wish it could have been longer, but we're back. And I just am so grateful that I focused this second half of 2024 on reprioritizing myself and my mental health and my wellness. And with that, also aligning my business to fit my lifestyle goals. Like, yes, I'm still prioritizing work. I'm still focusing on work. Work is important to me, but it's not the end all be all. It's not everything. Being intentional and being present with my family and my friends and my long distance people, and making time to see them, making time to have alone time by myself. Those are things that are most important, and aligning my business and my career with my lifestyle goals is essential. And that's what I've been really focusing on in the last few weeks. So being able to go out of office to do that was so nice. And I have one more trip next week to my alma mater. I'm going back to the University of Tennessee for the Institute of Professional Leadership's Gala. And I'm so excited to see my professors, the ones who believed in me from the very beginning. And I'm so excited to spend time with them and celebrate the incredible work of the gala and see some of the classmates. Some of them I know through LinkedIn, but none of these people were there when I was there. So it's really cool to finally meet the next generation of alumni and welcome them to the fold, because although going to UT was really hard for me, it was exactly what I needed at that time. I would not be where I am today. I would not be the attorney or the person that I am today without the relationships that I cultivated while I was there. Two of my best friends are from law school, and my professors are my mentors and my friends now, and I'm so grateful to them. So I'm excited to be back and get some more fall weather, and then hopefully in November I'll have probably 1 to 2 trips. Thinking a birthday trip to DC and then maybe New York. I don't quite know. Those are in planning stages. And then December, I have a couple of events here. It's Art Basel, obviously, and then we're going to Europe. So lots more on the horizon. But I love that I am making more time to travel and be present with my friends and family when I'm not working, and still making time for all of it. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because, yes, I'm an entrepreneur and I can make my own hours. But if you're not working, you're not producing. So you feel that pressure to always be on. And I still do feel that pressure, but I've been a lot better lately about, this can wait till tomorrow. I need to make time for myself and be intentional and set boundaries. And that is something that it's not always easy to do, especially with doom scrolling and social media. But I am giving myself a hard stop today. 6 p.m. We're done. And I'm going to just hang out, spend time with my family and friends. I have a charity event that I may attend if I'm feeling up to it. We'll see when the time comes. And yeah, that's where I'm at. But I want to share this conversation with you guys because Brianne is someone who does it all, does a lot. She's a PhD student, and it's a really cool PhD program. I'm not even going to try to tell you. I'm going to let her explain it. But she's in the medical field, and she studies like the ethics of medicine. And I think that is such a cool concept. And what she was talking on Threads about how what she's studying comes into play during disasters and like FEMA and hurricane relief and things like that. So I thought that was so interesting. It's such a timely conversation to have. And I just think it's really cool to see women doing multiple things. She's also a business owner. She has a clothing company and she's a creator and she's married or getting married. She's engaged. And I just love seeing multifaceted, multi-passionate, strong women. And those are the people that I want to surround myself with. And those people that I want you to surround yourself with. So having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, it was a moody, rainy day. And we just had the best time. So I'm honored to be able to share it with you. If you like this episode, please leave a rating and review. Please subscribe to the show, tag me, share, and let me know who you want to see next, what topics you want me to cover. I am going to be winding down season 2 in a couple of weeks and give you guys time off for the holidays and give myself a break. I'm learning again to set boundaries, and that means seasons of the Let's Get Candid podcast, but there's a lot more of me on my newsletter and on my social media accounts, and I hope to see you guys all there. Let me know what you guys want to see, where you want to see it, how I can serve you, and how I can share content and connect with you guys, because this community means the absolute world to me, and I'm so happy to be back. And I will see you guys in next week's episode of me, Brianne. So Brianne, what's something that people wouldn't know about you just from following you?
Oh, that's a good one. I think people probably wouldn't know just like how introverted and shy I honestly am. Like, I think when it comes to social media and stuff, you see kind of like one side, but I'm honestly like a really shy person. I get like a lot of social anxiety that I think people just wouldn't expect.
Yeah, that's like actually kind of a common answer for a lot of people. Like, they're always like, I know that I look like I'm really extroverted because I'm on social media, but I'm actually like not like that in person. And I think as I've gotten older, I've become a lot more introverted. I definitely was an extrovert as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I feel like I wouldn't say shy or like socially anxious for me, but definitely just like I'm tired and like I just don't have the energy to like deal with people or like be social if my social battery is running low. What made you then start social media? Like, if you are that way, like, I'm curious, what made you want to be on social media and share your life?
Honestly, so the reason I kind of started social media is because of my business. And in my head, I thought that was a great way for people to get to know kind of like the person behind the brand. I feel like my backstory and kind of like the reason I started my brand and the things that I do kind of just like elevate the business. And so I wanted people to like get to know me, get to know like what it is that I go through. And it kind of just started as something basically just for my business, like literally just to get more eyes on it. And now it's kind of just turned into something that I actually like doing. And it's kind of like a creative outlet when I'm literally doing so many other things that are not creative at all. So it's kind of just a fun thing to do now.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. It was definitely my creative outlet in school, in college, and law school as well. So tell me a little bit about your business. What prompted you then to start a business? And did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur and have your own business?
Yeah, so that's one of the questions I get asked the most. And I had no idea that this is what I wanted to do. Honestly, like I always tell everyone, I still don't even know if it's what I want to do. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, I guess.
I think it's stupid that we have to know at 18 or 20 or whatever. I like that you're like, I don't know, I can change my mind
I'm like,
tomorrow.
I have no idea. Like, I'm literally 27 and I'm like, I could do whatever I want to do. Like, I have no idea. And so I own a clothing brand called Helfrich Collective, and it's basically like a lifestyle loungewear, activewear type of brand. But I started it 3 years ago, almost four, basically because my mental health was really declining. I obviously was in lockdown from the pandemic. I got rejected to med schools, so many med schools I got rejected from. And for anyone who's ever kind of worked their whole life towards a certain goal, like everything I did was to get into med school. Like all my extracurriculars, all my classes, all my preceptoring, like everything was for this goal. And so to not get it, I felt very lost and very confused on what I was supposed to do. And I literally said to my mom, like, I just want to raise awareness for mental health because mine was not good. And I felt like from the outside looking in, a lot of people kind of thought like my life was the best. And I went to school in the States, even though I'm Canadian, and I like had this trajectory and this goal and all these things. So I made one hoodie. We donated to mental health. We raised awareness for mental health, and everyone just really, really loved it. They loved the quality of it. They loved the mission behind it. We donated and kind of shared my story, and I just never stopped. I just kept doing it. So
It's funny you say that because we're the same age. I turned 27 in November, and for me, like that pandemic era, I was in law school and lockdown happened, and my mental health was absolutely in the toilet. And that's when I started sharing more of my life on the internet because, similarly to you, people thought my life was amazing. And I'm like, I'm stuck in a state 3 states away. I don't know anybody here. I'm not getting along with people here. And I also can't leave this bubble. Like, I have never been someone who does homework in my bedroom. Like, I've never had a desk in my room. I would always do dinner, like homework on the dining room table. So when in lockdown, I had to do it in my bedroom because I couldn't go to the library anymore. I couldn't function, and I was struggling a lot. So social media became my outlet, and mental health has always been something that I've struggled with. And part of why I started the podcast was to share my story and share other people's stories and show that just because we show up one way on the internet and we are outgoing, we are happy-go-lucky, and like we love connecting with people, doesn't mean that we don't have our days and we don't struggle. Totally. Like, I'm actually not having the best day right now, but I had this commitment and I knew that this would be an incredible opportunity to get myself out of funk because I get to talk to someone that inspires me, and that's the whole purpose of this, like we all have our things and I want people to know that. So I appreciate that was the reason why you started this. And I love that you, from the beginning, also set out to donate to a worthy cause. I think a lot of people start off with that. Like, I'll do that eventually. Like, that's why I want to do it. But they don't actually do that from the beginning. They care so much more about profits and making money off of it. So I like that was something that you guys were intentional about from the beginning.
Thanks. I think also just like us as an example, I guess, like you see all the things that we do and like you going to law school, you doing all these things, but like also sharing that you have kind of these mental health battles, it just shows perseverance. And I feel like it just like helps other girls know that they're not alone, because mental health is such an isolating thing. And like I grew up in a family where you didn't really talk about your mental health. And so being the first one to talk about it and be like, I'm not doing well, was so scary. But like knowing that there's other people who are still doing these really badass things and like getting up every day. And I mean, doing this podcast recording, even though it might not be what you wanted to do today, like just because your own mental health, like it just shows that you're like so strong and able to get through it. And I think that's just like empowering for other girls to know.
Absolutely. So talk to me about being from Toronto and going to school in the States for college. Did you also apply to American med schools, or did you apply to a mix? And what is the process? I know like the legal system is different in Canada, but I don't know, I'm not familiar with much about any of the medical system, whether here or there. So what was that like?
Yeah, so I went to undergrad at University of Arizona. So that was so fun and so cool. I'm originally from Edmonton, which is like in Alberta, other side of Canada. And going to an American university was like the most wild thing ever. I was in a sorority. We had
also University of Arizona
we
too.
had Greek row. My parents came. My dad loved it. He like loved the frats. Like he thought it was so fun.
Oh, same.
So it was just such a cool experience. So I'm really, really lucky that I got to do that. And then when I got sent back home because of the pandemic, I was like, what am I going to do? When I didn't get accepted to med school, I knew I still wanted to pursue higher education. At the moment, I thought it was just going to kind of be like in the interim, and then I was going to reapply to med school. So I applied for a master's at a university in Pittsburgh. I got in, moved to Pittsburgh, did my master's, and kind of realized like I actually really love this and I'm actually really good at it. So then I decided to get my PhD in it too. But in terms of logistics, it's actually like a lot easier than people would think. You get a student visa, so you get to move there. The only thing that's a little weird is just like working and the logistics of being able to work, because a lot of the time you have to find a job that's within the field that you're studying. So when I went to University of Arizona, I had a degree in physiology, and technically medicine and like clinical setting isn't physiology. So it was like a little interesting. But I applied to med schools literally everywhere. Like any place that would take me, I probably applied. It got to the point that my parents were like, we need to stop spending money on all these applications because you're going crazy. So I applied to school in Australia. I applied in Canada. I applied in the US. Like I was willing to go anywhere. I actually got into med school like in Australia, but it was in the middle of the pandemic, and I didn't want to switch my schedule. Like it was too much to try and do. And at that point, my mental health was so bad. I was like, there's no way I can move across the world from my parents. Like I need them. But yeah.
It's funny. I applied to 18 law schools or 19 law schools, and I got into 3. And one of them was off the wait list. So, and I got waitlisted from like 3 or 4. So I feel you, like applying anywhere that will take you. I mean, I only applied in the United States, but, and like, I also kept it to like from the East Coast to like the Midwest. I didn't plan to go like further west. I'm sure I would have gotten into more options had I done that. But, to your point, like knowing Australia was too far for you. Obviously I had no idea the pandemic was going to happen at that point when I was applying. It was 2018, 2019, but I knew like I need to be relatively close to home, even though I want to leave my state for this experience. I'm curious for you though, did you always know you wanted to go back to Canada to practice, or were you going to work wherever you went to school, wherever you got an opportunity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like a little bit of both. Like to me, Canada's just like home, and I feel like good and safe, and like this is just like where I'm from. So I always kind of had this like sense of maybe I should go back. But especially, I mean, now like getting a PhD in bioethics, it's much more of an American type of field. Like there's a lot more jobs in America. So I literally was talking to my fiance the other day. I was like, do we move? Like I was like, do we like pick up and kind of move somewhere else? So it's not something I'm opposed to. Like I love moving to new places. I love trying like new environments and stuff. So it's kind of fun for me. So we'll see. I have no idea. But yeah, kind of both. I literally will go wherever.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely thought I was 21 when I was starting law school, and I was like, I know that ultimately, like similar to you, like Miami's home, Miami's where I want to be, Miami's safe for me. But I was like, I'm 21. Like, I don't really need to be in Miami right now. Do I want to be there when it's coming time for me to have my own family? Yes. But like for the next like 10, 15 years, like I'm chilling. Like I'm focused on my career. I want to do my own thing, whatever. So that's why I was open to going to schools in other states. And I was like, I'll work in Nashville, DC, or Charlotte. Like those were my like top 3 options if it wasn't New York. even though I didn't really want to live in New York long term, but I was like, I'll do it if that's the opportunity. But like DC, Charlotte, Nashville, so like University of Tennessee makes sense for me. I'm relatively in that area. Cool. And then pandemic happened 7 months in, and I was like, I guess I have to go home now. And then I was here, and I was like, nope, Miami's where I want to be. So that's where I ended up coming back to. But I am like you. Like, I love experiencing new things. I love to travel. I like the idea of like making a house a home. I've only gotten to do it twice, like in my college apartment and my law school apartment, and they were shared spaces. But I'm dying to do it for myself, like my own home. Like, I live at home with my parents right now. I'm like, I'm dying to have my own space to decorate and like make it homey and like do my thing. So I'm similar to you. I'm ready to pick up and go wherever the wind takes me. So that's cool that you're open to it. Hopefully he's able to like also like be flexible and stuff.
And like I feel like it's just such a good experience and opportunity, and like I've grown so much and in different ways from leaving my hometown. Like I feel like I'm a very different person. Like even just going to undergrad in a different place and like being around people from so many different walks of life compared to like my small little town that I've like grown up in. Like you grow and you become a different person in like a good way, I guess. And so yeah, I'm like so open to moving wherever I need to move to.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. And it's, I think, a rare quality nowadays. I think it has made us, like the pandemic especially, has made us all a lot more homebodies. And like people are kind of unafraid to travel and try something new because, you know, for a lot of reasons, like people are just like afraid of putting themselves out there or maybe getting stuck somewhere else or not having the comforts of home. But I'm curious to your point, like, because I 100% agree, you have to leave your hometown to, you know, you can always come back, but I think you grow so much more when you leave and you get such an appreciation for where you're from too, when you realize that not everyone lives like you, and you learn a lot about yourself. And I've heard this before, but is Canada and the US like really that different? Like what was so different for you about going to school in the US?
Honestly, not much. Like I think a lot of the time people think it's so drastic. It's really not. I mean, I lived in Arizona, I lived in Pittsburgh, and I think I honestly would consider Pittsburgh home. Like I really, really loved it there so much, which is kind of a controversial take because a lot of people don't love Pitt, but
I've never been. So.
I love it. I literally am obsessed with it, but I don't really think there's that many things that are different. Like culturally, it's very, very similar. So it was a really easy progression and adaptation.
I've heard definitely mixed things with that, but that's good to know. Like at least it wasn't so different for you. For me, like even in the same country, like going from Miami, which is very Latin America, to Tennessee was a culture shock. So I'm always curious when people make bigger moves than I did, how they are. But I've actually never been to Canada, but I am going to Toronto in 2 weeks.
Fun.
I'm so excited. But yeah, talk to me about, bioethics. You said you got a master's in it and that's how you really fell in love with it. What is bioethics, and what are you when you get a PhD in it, like what does that look like?
So everyone's always so confused when I tell them because they're like, I've never even heard of this before. But basically it's like the ethics of healthcare. So kind of when you're in a hospital setting, like end of life or decision making, pediatrics, like kind of those ethical things that come up when you're in a hospital setting, or global policies, like for example, the pandemic, like how do we ethically allocate resources? How do we do all this? And so that's like really interesting to me. It's still in the medical field. It's just like in a different perspective, which I thought was kind of fun. And I always said that if I were to become a doctor, my biggest thing would be patient care. And like, that's really what I thought I'd be really good at. Like, I'm not very good at math. I'm not the smartest person, but I'm like, I would be a really good doctor because I'd have really good like patient awareness and just kind of that ethics of it. And so being in a field that is literally all about that is something that I just naturally just love. And so when I get my PhD, I can work in a hospital. There's like clinical ethics. You could do more organizational ethics, which is more like the ethics in the business realm. I personally love healthcare, so I'm going to do something in that. But my goal in life is to work for the WHO. I want to really just like help make global policies and like help with that kind of thing. So fingers crossed, that's like what the end goal hopefully is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's also something that people often forget about. You know, I see this a lot with lawyers too. Like law firms will hire the top of their class, like the top 3%, 5%. They don't really want to look below that because you have like they want the smartest people, but the smartest people aren't necessarily the ones that are the most personable or fun or really know how to talk to clients and talk to other coworkers. And like that is a really big part of your job. And especially with doctors, like I'm sure you've seen like the TV shows, like what's the one where the doctor's autistic? I think he's on the spectrum.
The Good Doctor.
Is that what that's called? And it's like he sometimes he misses social cues, and like that's a really big part of taking care of your patients and working with clients and working with opposing counsel and like collaborating on a team, like understanding the other people around you that you're it's not an isolated role, much like the schooling aspect of it is. So I think that's really cool that you recognize like that is actually where my value is, and finding a field that you can really pursue that and focus on that, I think is really cool. Do you think the pandemic, I wonder if you've been asked this before, do you think the pandemic and like the ethical issues that arise in situations like that made you pursue bioethics more? Or like, would you like have pursued a different type of master's program had that pandemic not been happening?
Honestly, great question. I don't know if it necessarily pushed me to pursue it. It's definitely something that we talk about in courses all the time, and we kind of look at it like, I mean, it's a prime example. Like it literally changed the world for everyone. But I think it was always kind of something that was like in the back of my brain as a like for a field, because like I said, just I always like the patient care aspect, like that was my claim to fame. I was like, I might not get into this med school because of my MCAT score, but like I promise you I'll be such a good doctor because of the way that I view patients. And I always say like no one goes to the hospital for fun. Like no one's going there to have a good time. So like there's so many other things that you have to consider. And so it was always something that I was like, okay, well, if I don't get into med school, maybe I do this, because honestly, I thought it was going to help my med school application. Like I thought it was going to be something they were going to be like, wow, look at you, like so good. And then I just ended up loving it and just like continuing on. But yeah, the pandemic's definitely an interesting thing in ethics, but I don't know if it necessarily like pushed me to go into it.
No, that's totally fair. I think for me, it allowed us to be more remote in a profession that is very traditional and very, you know, they stick by the books and they're not in person and, you know, very old systems, and having to do things in a new way without any other option. Like they had to figure it out, and very quickly it opened the doors to like, there's other ways to practice law, and there's other ways to practice medicine. There's other ways to do things that have traditionally been done only one way for a very long time. And I don't think I would have opened my law firm, especially not so early on, had I not been able to do it completely virtual. And like been an entrepreneur so early on, had I not had the ability to work with people that I was meeting through social media that didn't necessarily live where I lived, because I was gaining experience and clerking and networking with people that didn't live in Knoxville, Tennessee, which like is a very limited place. Like there's a great hospital and there's, you know, great schools, but like there's not a whole lot to do there besides football. So, and like the Smoky Mountains. But no, that's definitely interesting. I've always wondered that, because I also see, like, I have a lot of friends that are in the medical field, whether it's dentists or doctors, or they end up becoming PAs because med school didn't kind of happen for them, but that they did do a master's in between. It makes it easier to bridge the gap because they don't often get into med school on the first try, which is very different than law school. I also don't know if I didn't get in the first round, I think I would have applied one more round. But I don't know if I would do multiple rounds the way I think a lot of times doctors and dentists do. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to go get a master's to supplement. And I'm like, by that point, you still have another 8 to 10 years of school and you're still doing this. I don't know if I would do that personally.
Same.
But that's interesting. What was the support aspect like for you? From your family? I don't know if your fiance was around at that point, when you guys were, if you were dating, but what was that like on an emotional level? Recognizing, okay, maybe med school isn't for me, but there is this other option.
So my family is very medical. My grandpa created an antibiotic that literally saves billions of people's lives every year. They use it in the hospital. So my uncle's a doctor, my cousin's a doctor. That's just kind of what I was brought up in. And so I think one of the things that was also kind of tricky for me is figuring out if I actually wanted to go to med school for myself or if I wanted to go because of kind of my family's accolades. And I felt like this is the pressure that I feel. And so my mom was actually the one who said, you didn't get into med school this time. Let's find you a master's program to up your credentials and to also stay in school. Because I think if you take a time off, would I have gone back? Maybe not. So basically, she was the one that kind of put me into that program, gave me kind of that idea. But at the end, once I decided this wasn't what I wanted, med school wasn't actually what I wanted, everyone was so supportive and so fine with it. But I think the thing that was the hardest was honestly just my own mentality surrounding it. Especially because since I was little, I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a surgeon. I was going to go to med school. I was going to live up to the hype of my family's name. I was going to do all these things. And so I think, of course, a PhD is still massive and it's still really good, but just kind of having to almost mourn that and find something else that was better suited for me was something that was really kind of just an interesting thing. I talked about it a ton in therapy. I had to work through it in therapy, but at the end of the day, it's definitely something that makes me so much more happy than I think if I would have went to med school would have been.
That is huge and is something that I find myself talking a lot about with prospective and current law students. Because a lot of times you see, and med school isn't really like this because of how difficult it typically is to get into. But you see a lot of people going to law school because dad's a lawyer, uncle's a lawyer, this person's a lawyer, or because they're I'm not ready for the real world yet. Let me go to school for another 3 years. I'm that is not a good enough reason. Do you know what you are getting yourself into? I think med school, doctors have it 100 times harder than lawyers, but that is not for the faint of heart. You do not do this on a whim. And I think too many people go into it thinking, oh, it's just going to be easy. It's an extension of college. How hard could it really be? And then they get there and they're oh shit, this is actually hell. And I'm no one there, I don't know why you thought there was illusions about this. So I think it's really good that your parents, your mom specifically, was so supportive of you, being hey, is this really what you want? And allowing you the space to figure it out, because there is so much pressure when you do have family members in that field, or a partner or friends. For me, I had nobody, so my parents were you're on your own, kid. We'll support you, but I got nothing. And so I think that really helped, because while they wanted me to do corporate America and go the traditional law firm route for the financial stability thing, they also understood that okay, we get it. This maybe isn't for you. We will support you in going on your own. I'm living at home in order to be able to do that. And they support me in doing so. I don't know if they had been lawyers, if they would have been cool with that decision. So I think it's really cool that your mom was like, no, I want you to do this for you, and that you really took the time to think about it, because that is something that I see a lot of my classmates and like just in general law students struggle with, is like, who are they actually doing this for? Are you doing it for the money, or are you doing it for somebody? And if like, you have to have a why. I think with everything, with whatever you do in life, no matter what, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a why. That has to be like the through line between everything you do. And like, that has to be what you check everything against. Like, if this isn't going to make me a better person or serve me in some way or help me get to XYZ goal, why am I doing it? And if I think a lot of people just don't have that in them, but I think it's really good that you had the ability to kind of figure that out for yourself. Also, like, with having so much pressure, I think too, like, did you want to do the exact same field of medicine that your family did? Or like, you said you wanted to be a surgeon, like what do they do? Like, did you want to do what they did and want to work with them, or you just wanted to be a doctor because they were a doctor?
So they do all different fields. And I basically just wanted to be a doctor because they were doctors. My older cousin was always kind of the person that no one actually compared us, but like I compared us, because in my head I was like, oh, I'm going to go to not law school. I'm going to go to med school. And I'm basically following in his footsteps. And then he took the MCAT, got the 99th percentile, got straight in from undergrad, like just is the smartest human being I've ever met in my life. And I'm like, we do not relate. Like, I'm like, this is like, school has always been, I wouldn't say hard for me, but like tough. Like, I have to work for it. It doesn't just naturally come easy. And not that my cousin like didn't work hard, but he's just naturally so brilliant. And so I think that was also a thing that when I didn't get into med school, it was like even more gut wrenching to me, because I was like, oh my God, like, look at what my family's doing. And like, he was so smart and I can't live up to that. And so, yeah, I think it just like took me a little bit of time to kind of realize, like, at the end of the day, it is my life. So why would I do something that I'm unhappy with? Would I have been happy in medicine? I have no idea, because like, I don't know what it actually really entails. But I know that like what I'm doing literally gives me purpose, and it's something I'm so excited about. And I love talking about these things, and I love fighting for female rights. And like, I just love doing all these things in ethics. And so I think I like found my calling, and I think it's perfect. My fiance tells me I'm so like opinionated all the time. So I think this is like the perfect field for me to like get my point across.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely, I like the ethics side of things too. Actually, I had a law school mentee of mine this morning be like, can I actually get in trouble? Like, there's like this thing called unauthorized practice of law. Like, if you're acting as a lawyer, but you're not actually a lawyer, like you could get in trouble really bad for that. She's like, can I actually be like representing myself in my own brand partnerships? Like, if I'm a law student? And I'm like, as long as you're not holding yourself out as a lawyer, yeah, you're fine. But like the ethics, like those are the things that she's like, I think I'm getting too in the weeds about the ethics of it, because like I'm studying ethics right now for like part of our licensure exams. There's a whole separate license or exam about ethics. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a nerd about all that stuff. Like, it's not necessarily something I want to be in the weeds about, but like, you have to know it. And I think too many people just pretend that the rules don't apply to them, where they don't want to believe that they do. And that's problematic. So it's cool that that's something that you really focused on. So when you were doing all of this work on yourself to kind of figure out where you go next and what you actually really want, what were some of the practices and tools that you implemented or habits that you created for yourself to do this? And like, I think it was mid-pandemic, so you probably had a lot more time on your hands than like the average person would have now. But what are some of these things, and like, how can people do if they're kind of faced with that decision right now of like, I always thought I wanted to do this, and like, maybe that's not what I want anymore. How do you kind of bridge the gap there?
So like you said, I mean, it was during the pandemic, and I'm a person that I do so many things kind of to like distract myself almost. Like, so during the pandemic, I was doing nothing. I wasn't in school. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. Like, I literally was sitting in my room by myself. And I was like, who am I? Like, I literally was like, what am I doing? Like, I've never had a break. I've never really understood what it is that I wanted to do. And so I think one of the things is just like getting to know myself without all these external influences and without like all these distractions. And obviously during the pandemic, it was a little bit easier than it would be now. But I think also going to therapy, I started therapy, and like getting to talk to someone who is just an unbiased third party is so helpful, because I could talk to my family, but obviously my family trauma impacts decisions I make. And like, I could talk to my friends, but obviously my friends have opinions. So having someone who literally was looking at me just like a blank slate, like, let's just dive into all of this, helped so much. And I think something that I've kind of learned to like get to know myself a little bit and just like be proud of myself is I really try and celebrate the small wins. I'm a person that like I hold myself to such a high standard. And so like even when I graduated undergrad, I was like so embarrassed by it because I didn't get the GPA that I wanted, and like I didn't want anyone to celebrate, like just stuff like that. And I'm like, that is so sad. I literally got a degree. Like, I should be so excited. And so now I just try to celebrate like every little milestone. And I think once you do that, they start to build and you start to just like really become confident in who you are. And then you can make decisions and not second guess them. Cause like that was always my thing, is I would make a decision and I'd be like, oh my God, what is my family going to say? What is social media going to say? What's my therapist going to say? And I'm like, you got to just like be confident in like what you have to offer and like what it is that you want to do.
Yeah. I am a lot like you in that sense, where I remember like my college graduation, I was so annoyed at my parents because they were like, we always expect you to be great. Like it wasn't a question of like that you were gonna graduate. We knew you were gonna graduate. So like it's like we knew that you wanted more. So like it wasn't a really big deal. Like they were the ones that didn't celebrate. I mean, like we went to a dinner and like we had like a nice dinner and that kind of thing. But like it was like, I remember literally I moved home the day of my college graduation. Like it's a 4-hour drive, don't get me wrong. But like my apartment was packed up. We went to lunch after graduation, my 10 a.m. ceremony, changed into comfy clothes, packed up the car and drove home. And like, they were like, all right, what's next? What law schools are you applying to? I was like, cause I was a December grad and I was like,
just like, didn't give you that
like,
moment.
Can I get 24 hours? Like, hold on. And like law school graduation, like I moved home like the day after, like 2 days after, cause that was a little bit of a further drive. But they're like, all right, bar exam, what's next? And I'm like, dude, like this was the hardest 3 years of my life. Like I need a minute. But I remember like by that point, my mental health was so shit that when I graduated with a 3.01, I was like, I don't care. I did it. C's get degrees.
Yes,
and that's all that really matters. And I always like, I look at myself now and I'm like, similar to you, I'm like a good mix between like you and your cousin. Cause I'm like an A/B student without applying myself. So because I was like, okay, I'm a good student, like I didn't apply myself. But if I had applied myself, I would have been an incredible student. And so like I look back now and I'm like, damn, I wish I would have tried harder to like actually, like I would have been able to go to some incredible schools. Then I look at my actual experiences and I'm like, no, I wouldn't change that because of the people that are in my life because of it and who I am now. But like I always think about that. But in law school, when we were stuck in, 4 walls and didn't really have a whole lot going on, and you had more time to think, I started celebrating the small wins a lot more too. And that's something I still do now. You have to, like, all right, I made myself a really yummy lunch today. Like if you made your bed today and that is all you got out of bed to make it, that's progress. Like, and that was literally like how law school was for a lot of it for me. And like, there's days like that still now. So I love that you really learn to celebrate the little things because they do add up. Like, and that's another thing with like vision boards and goals and stuff is it's okay to have like this really grand plan. But if you don't make micro goals to achieve it and it just stays like this really scary, big, ominous vision, like you're always going to feel like you're behind and like aren't capable and you aren't deserving, because you can't just like put it out into the universe and expect it to come to, like, you actually have to put in the work to do it. And like, it's going to change, it's going to evolve, but you have to show the universe that you're actually working for it and doing something for it. And like, I was actually on this with my childhood best friend today of, I posted it on my stories yesterday, like a reel of like Morgan Freeman telling, I forget her name right now, the actress, you know, when you ask for patience, the universe isn't going to just give you patience. They're going to put you in situations where you have to learn to be patient. And that's one of my biggest fatal flaws is I'm just not a patient person, like, at all. And I've been praying and hoping and manifesting and like doing all these things. I'm like, why isn't this happening? I want this now. I've done all these things. I'm like, why isn't it happening? And I realized yesterday, that's why I posted that I was like, wait, like, this situation that's in my life right now is actually happening because I need to learn patience. And it's going to teach me like really good patience. So everything happens exactly how it's supposed to, but we need to celebrate the little things in between, because I don't know, that's what makes life worth living. Like, it's fun. Yeah. It's more enjoyable that way.
And I mean, I agree. Like, my biggest flaw is that I'm not patient at all. Like, I send an email, I will literally wait and be like, why are you not replying to me? And then I'll send a follow-up. Like, I'm so impatient. It's like actually not okay. But same thing, like, especially not getting into med school, like, one of my things now is I've been posting this a ton on my socials lately because I want people to like recognize it. But I'm like, if I got into med school 4 years ago, like, I wouldn't have my fiance. We would have never met. I wouldn't have my bridesmaids that I have because I wouldn't have met them in my PhD program. Like, I wouldn't be living back home in Toronto. Like, just everything happens the way it's supposed to. And it's really easy to say when you're on the other side of it. But like, when you're in it and you think your life is over, like, it's obviously a lot harder to actually believe it, but everything really does happen the way that it's supposed to and like for a greater purpose. And it's just, sometimes you just have to like trust in that and just like let it happen.
Yeah. Oh no, I wanted to ask you about that. And so I'm glad you touched on it, but, no, 100%. Like, I look at the people that I dated in the past or the people that I was like really good friends with at a certain extent, like period of time, whatever. I'm like, I'm not the same person that I was then. And if I had gotten engaged or gotten married to that person, or, you know, have done whatever XYZ thing I had said I was going to do with that person, like, I wouldn't have all these things. Like, if I had not gone to law school exactly when I did, where I did, with the pandemic, and like made all the mistakes and things that I had at that time, like, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and I wouldn't have the people in my life that I have now. And like what you said, and like, yeah, it's always easier to be like, what if, but we can't live that way. Like, that just, we have to take like the good, bad, and the ugly for what it is and like learn from it. There's a lesson there. It wouldn't have happened without it. And it sucks, but like, there's a reason why it happened, and you have to accept that and just move on. Yeah, I look at like the people in my life now, and with the exception of like a very select hand, the closest people to me now are people that I've met in the last 2 to 3 years since I've been back home, because I've done a lot more work on myself now. I go to therapy. I'm a lot more conscious of my faults and my mistakes and my bad habits. And I'm a lot more trusting of myself to make decisions. I'm a lot more forgiving of myself and others. I'm not so exact. It's like, I used to be very like, it had to be black and white. It had to be logical. It had to make sense. And like, to this day, I'm still the friend that people come to for logical advice. And I'm like, my life is in shambles. Like, I'm not the right person. They're like, you're really good for other people. For yourself, that's a whole nother story. That's why you call me. But like, for other people, I'm really good at giving logical advice. But I wanted to ask you that, like, how do you think like your life has transformed being in a PhD program, it not being what you thought you were going to do? And, you know, how did you, and like, then to that further, like the meeting your fiance, meeting your bridesmaids now, like, these people have transformed your life and changed it in so many ways that you wouldn't have had. Like, how did you find those people? Because I feel like it's really hard to be a strong, independent woman who has their own thing going on and find a supportive partner in this day and age, and then not even bringing in the social media part.
Yeah. I mean, so like when I didn't get accepted to med school, I also like was struggling with like disordered eating, and I just got broken up with to someone who I like literally was with for like a month, but I thought we were going to get married. I don't know. It was like a wild thing.
Yeah. Those hurt so much more. Those
broke my heart. But so anyways, that all happened. I'm not even being dramatic. I thought my life was over. I thought I had no purpose. I was living in my parents' house again. I was just really stressed out. I was like, I have nowhere to go for school. I have no path. Like, I'm going to die in my bedroom, in my childhood bedroom. Like, I was like, nothing's going to happen to me. And because all those things happened, like I started my brand, and because of my brand, I got to do really cool things, and I have all these accomplishments for it now that are just like crazy that I never thought would happen. I'm on your podcast, which wouldn't have happened if I didn't have all these things happen. Yeah. So that kind of like gives me comfort a little bit, especially because I'm someone who I have everything planned out like to a T. Like, if you saw me trying a wedding plan right now, you'd be like, this girl's nuts. Like, just so like calculated, type A. So to have things happen that I'm not expecting, like, flip my world upside down. But in terms of kind of like finding a partner and stuff, I think I always say like when I met Dean was after all of this happened, and I went to therapy, and I really got to know like who it is that I want to be with, and like what qualities I want in someone. And it just naturally happened. Like, I know that that's not what anyone wants to hear, because you're like, don't go look for it and it'll happen for you. But that's honestly true, because I literally moved to Pittsburgh like 3 months later, and I wasn't looking to find anyone in my hometown because I was like, I'm about to move. And it just happened exactly how it was supposed to. And I think when you get to know yourself and you get to know kind of what you want, you exude that out into the world, and you're going to find someone who matches that. Like, the person that broke up with me when I was like starting my brand, in that moment, I was actually like a chaos human being. Like, I was so flustered with everything. I wasn't like putting out the best energy. And so it makes sense that I would have attracted someone of that caliber. Like, it makes sense. Like 100%. Attracts like. And so after doing the work on myself, like, I really found someone who matched every single thing that I was like working on, and every single thing that I was trying to find in a partner. And it just worked so well. And luckily I'm with someone who like, he knows I'm very independent. I'm very strong and opinionated, and like loves that about me, as opposed to someone who people I've been with before who were like, like, you gotta simmer down, or like, you're too dramatic, you're too much, all those kind of things that we all hear. So
yeah, 100%. It's funny. We have a lot of parallels. So I'm also very opinionated and very like independent and strong. And like, there's some times where I'm like very much a planner, and then I'm a Sagittarius. So then there's other times where I'm like, I need to like, you're making me feel trapped. I need to go. Like, I can't do this. And like, I've always said, like, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I wanted to be a wife and a mom too. Like, I didn't want to be just one thing. I didn't want to be put into a box. So to attract a life and also a partner in that life that allows me to be all those things, like that's hard. And when I was in a much more chaotic period of my life, I would attract obviously emotionally unavailable men. We all do it.
Been there.
But because I was emotionally unavailable, and then I had put a lot of work on myself. And so I thought, okay, I let go of things in my life that were going to block me from attracting the right person. So when I was open to it, and I finally let go of all these other things and done all the work, I met somebody last year, and I was like, oh, great. Like, this is finally, like, it's going to work out. But it was like what you said of like, he never outwardly was like, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. But it was definitely like, he liked it at first. And the more he realized like, oh no, there's a lot more of it than I'm even seeing. Like,
that's how it always goes.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, no. And I was like, time to go. And so, but I was in and it was only 4 months. And we had our entire life planned out. Like, I thought this was it. We had it to the T. And so when that ended, and I was the one that ended it, I thought my life was over, and like it was going to go up in flames, because now what do I do? And it's like, hello, did you not just build an entire business? Did you not do all these other things? Like, you're going to throw it all away because that one relationship that you didn't even want anymore, like, you're the one who ended it. And I was in such a chaotic place. I attracted people that were super chaotic. Basically, like, I was in like this really chaotic period of my life, and it took several months of removing that energy and those people that were causing it from my life. And sure enough, like, right when I'm like literally was saying like, all right, I'm finally clear of all of this, I'm focusing on me, business is starting to pick up, second half of the year is always busier, blah 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 blah, I got a phone call from my friend, hey, come to this event. It's like a wellness, like, coffee and chill. I don't know if you've seen it, like the cold plunge thing. And she was like, come to this event. It's like 8:30 on a Sunday. I was like, excuse me, I'm not awake right now. Why are you calling me? She was like, get your ass to my boyfriend's house right now. And I was like, excuse me, what? Oh my God. And so I get in the car, just completely like not
thinking anything of it.
Yes. I'm in a bathing suit. I look like this. Nothing in my head. I'm watching F1 on my phone. I am not paying attention. There's a man sitting next to me. Don't talk to him for like literally the first 2 hours. Like, barely. I like barely engaged with the man at all. All of a sudden, we're like sitting at Soho House, and he like accidentally puts his hand on my leg. Like, he like leaned over and like it like was touching me, and I was like, and he like, I looked at him, but he didn't move it. So I was like, I'm not gonna, like, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but
like,
I was
I'm
like,
not gonna move it.
Okay, weird. Like, what is, and like my best friend and her boyfriend are like in the pool, so they're not watching any of this. And I was like, so I guess like I'll talk to the guy, and then here we are. But I was like, and we joke about it now. It's like, I was just not at all. And he's like, the reason, like, and like she said it too, she's like, that's how it happens. Like, literally, we weren't trying to set you guys up. We were not trying to do anything. He was visiting for 4 days, and I tried to get you to hang out with us 3 different times in this long weekend, and because it's 4th of July, and like, you wouldn't come out anytime. So like, I like, even if I had the thought in my head, like, I was like, okay, this is just not gonna happen, like, whatever. Sure enough, like, the one day that like she stopped trying to like do anything about it, it like naturally happens. But it's like, to your point earlier, like, I asked him, I was like, do you think I'm more type A, like have to have it all planned out, or like am I more like spontaneous and go with the flow? And he was like, because you went to law school, I'm going to say that you are type A and like very like on your shit, and like you have to like have it all figured out. But because you went the non-traditional path and have like done things very differently, I'm going to say that maybe you're a little bit more spontaneous than like you like to let on. And I was like, 100%. Like, I need you to give me a safe, controlled environment to. Yeah,
I was gonna say, is he more type A, or is he super chill? Like, Dean is like so chill.
That's a good question.
That I'm like, I mean, not so chill, but like, just, I plan everything and he just kind of goes along with it. And I feel like that's honestly a good balance, because if we were both so type A, I think we would like get annoyed at each other all the time.
Or if he was so chill.
Yeah, if he was like, I don't care, I'd be like, you don't care? Like, I'd be like,
yeah,
choose something.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think we're both a good balance. Like, his career field kind of requires him to be like, he lives in 30-minute increments of his day. And like, if you are not penciled in, like, he really doesn't have time for you. But he loves to travel, and he likes to do all these, like, he loves skiing, he likes like extreme sports and like doing crazy things that like someone who is very like by the book wouldn't really be. But he's like, his job forces him to live by the book, I think. So when he's on his free time, he kind of is like more But I basically told him, I was like, I need you to, like, I will give you my availability and you tell me what you want to do. Like, I'm going to allow you to lead, but just know it's really hard for me to do that. But like, I need to trust you and let me relax. Like, I can't be so on all the time because it's just too much for me. Like, I run a business. Like, he's someone, he's literally takes orders. He's military. Like, someone that takes orders and like does things, and like he doesn't have to worry about that. Whereas I'm the one making the orders and like doing, and I'm like, I can't run our lives that way. Like, I need
you
break to take some ownership of it. I need a mental break. So it's really interesting. But like, I would not have met the friend that I met him through had I not been in law school using social media as a creative outlet. We connected on Instagram one day, like,
oh my God,
just we started following each other and we got happy hour, and the rest is history 4 years later. Like, you know,
everything really happens just like the way it's supposed to. And when you actually like sit back and you kind of think like for you, like all the little things that had to happen to like lead to that one moment, it's like honestly kind of freaky.
It is. Like, there's no one moment where you're like, that's why that happened. It's like all of it led to, like, so many things had to happen. Like, her and her boyfriend, like, they went to the same high school together, but he's 3 years older than her. So, like, they weren't really close in high school. They, like, knew of each other. And his best friend's wife is friends with her somehow. And, like, they were out, she got invited out, and like he was there and they met, but like, mind you, they didn't start talking for months later. Like, they met in the fall, like winter, and like they started dating in the spring, like, you know. And he knows this guy through his roommate who was army buddies with this guy. And it's like, so like, again, like, it's like all very like crazy. And like, like, you can't pinpoint it, but I wanted to ask you this too, because like, this is something that I really struggled with, and sometimes you struggle with still, is sharing your life on social media. Obviously, like, there's things you can't share, things you won't share. We all need to have that like private, not secret. We need to have some things for ourselves. But how do you, I hate using the word balance, but I guess navigate having your life on the internet with having a life that is private and sacred, and for you guys, you and Dean, you and work, obviously, you know, all these other things, because you're not one of those people who shares everything on the internet, which I personally love and appreciate. And I've actually started sharing a lot less than I used to, because I want to keep things for me. So how do you navigate that? And like, is he supportive of that? Is he cool with that? Like, I'm always like curious.
Oh yeah, he loves it. I mean, he calls himself Deanie Downloads because he thinks anytime he's in a video, like, it goes viral, which honestly, like, it does happen. So like, that's annoying. But I mean, even when I had my podcast, because I had a podcast for a long time and I kind of decided to just like let it go. I just had too much on my plate. I couldn't do it. But I always said, like, I wish I was like a secretive person. Like, I want to be a private girly, but I literally can't shut the fuck up. Like, I literally tell everyone everything. I meet someone for the first time. I'm like, oh, did you know that in 2004 I did that? Like, I just love, I don't know why. Because I'm like, it's not even like it's anything that fun. But I'll be like, oh, I had eggs and toast for breakfast. And everyone's like, okay, like, why do we need to know this? But I think
I had a chocolate chip cookie for breakfast.
I saw that on your story and I was so jealous. But I think when it comes to socials, like, I've just kind of learned that not everyone needs to know everything about you. And I think also, like, with my business, there's certain things that I don't want to tell people before it happens, or like before, like, if I'm working on a deal or something, I don't really want to tell people in the process. Like, I like to be really private in that kind of aspect. Like, I always say, like, work hard in private and then like shine in public type of thing. So I like to just keep those things like to myself. But at the same time, I have such a hard time because I love sharing everything with everyone. Like, I'll like literally tell everyone about my wedding planning process. Like, I don't know. I love to share it. But I think I'm just also I don't want to say I'm like fatigued with social media, but I think I'm like kind of fatigued. Like I'm taking like a little breather and just kind of like going on, posting what I want to post and then like logging out. Like I just kind of just want to realize like there's a whole world outside of social media, and like sometimes I need to put my phone down and like live in it. So I think that's also kind of helped me to just like balance how much I share, how much I don't, just because I'm like, I just want to live in the moment with a lot of things and not necessarily pull my phone out and record it and share it.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely am someone who I struggle to live in the moment. So I've been, my word for the year for the last like 3 years has been to be more intentional and be more present. And dating someone who you literally cannot share their life has been really helpful for me because I can't share it. So I just don't even take pictures of it. I'm like actually like in it. And so that has started to translate more into other aspects of my life. And it's like, yeah, I want to like, I'll take pictures and then I'll post it the next day. Like, or, I'm like, you take the picture. Like, I don't want it on my phone. I don't want to be on it. I want to, because then if I open, then I see all the other notifications that came in, then I have to check it. And like, then I can't put the phone away until it's like, no, I just want to like enjoy where I'm at. And I think I'm a little fatigued with it too. I'm not going to lie. I definitely find myself scrolling less, especially TikTok. Like I'm losing brain cells because they're so short. And like, I don't want to do that. I find myself skimming everything because it's like, we've made it like so instant. And I literally like, other than work, obviously, like when I'm like reading a book for fun, I'm like, I don't know what it's
you can't like
like,
concentrate
I have to read it again.
And I'm like, this is not a good thing. Like I should not be bored like a page in. Like yeah.
We don't get to you don't enjoy anything anymore because it's like cool to complain about everything. And I'm like, I do not want to hear someone complain about their flight
literally
getting delayed or the restaurant, the server being, it's like, then don't talk about it. Like there's a saying that my mom always said growing up, like, gallerita te ves más bonita. And I would be like, that's so rude. Like, I'm like, it's basically like, you look prettier with your mouth closed. And I was so insulted and offended by that my entire life. But the older I get, I'm like, honestly, true. Like, I don't need to say something. Like, it's not important. It's really not that deep. But so I've like gotten to be a lot more intentional with what I share, and it has been really nice. And I appreciate that because you are so busy, you have so many things going. Like either you are intentionally that way, or you just choose like, you know, or you just don't share it because you don't have the time to. But I like that it like, so when you are on and when you are choosing to share that, it's a more powerful too. It's like, oh, she wanted us to be a part of that moment with her. And I want people to want to be a part of the big things. And like the little things, like you don't need to know the minutia of my day to day. Like that's not
and
fun.
Honestly, I mean, some people post like day in the lives and they're so fun and they're going all these places and all this stuff. I'm like, I literally woke up, went to the gym, and I've been sitting on the same chair looking at my computer all day. Like no one wants to see this anyways. And I'm
boring.
like, no one actually wants to know like what it's like writing my papers. So I'm like, I'm just not going to share anything right now until I have something that I feel like is worth sharing, or I just have something to say. Like sometimes I just don't need to say something just to say something.
More people should take that advice. But yes, I 100% agree. No, I think it's cool too. Like, yeah, like dissertations. Like I had to write a mini expository, like a 30-page paper to graduate from law school. But my school required it. And I don't know how you guys did it because that was hell. And that was only like, we had 2 years to do it. Like you guys have, it's like, I mean, depending on the PhD program, it's like multiple years. Like that's like literally all you do for several years. So I give you guys props. I don't know how you do it, but this has been so amazing. If you could give, like, I think like now that we're both like in our late 20s and like we're in these chapters of our lives that like past us probably wouldn't think we would ever be in. What is like one piece of advice you have for someone who is like, you know, that version of us 4 years ago, like, you know, early 20s, like graduating from college, figuring out like, all right, I have the rest of my life in front of me. Like, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do? Like, what's your biggest piece of advice?
As annoying as it's going to sound for me to say this, because if you're actually going through it, you're going to be like, okay, that's enough. But basically, like, everything's going to work out how it's supposed to. Like, everything's going to be okay. I think probably, like, for both of us, like, when we were that age, like, we literally thought our lives were over. I was like 21 and I thought I was like, had no future, no career, like nothing. But everything is going to be okay. You are going to land on your feet. You are going to figure out what's important to you, and it will work in your benefit. Just in that moment, it's really hard to like think about that.
Yeah, it's true. It is annoying to say and it's annoying to hear, but it's the truth. Like, you just have to trust it. Yeah. This has been so incredible. I'm so excited for you to see, like, you know, everything that you have going on, the wedding, the dissertation. Hopefully it's going well for you. I know that is a process in and of itself, but I appreciate you so much taking the time to come on the podcast and chat with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys next week.